So this discussion is about our group protocol for our mental health project, and the title of our project was Social Living Skills, Money Management for Grocery Shopping. And we're just going to go through our group protocol and discuss all the things that we have in there. And just to give a rundown of what is in there, there's going to be a frame of reference we're going to talk about the population that we're serving, the leadership style and the format, and just something about all the activities that we were doing with this project here. So for the frame of reference, Kaitlin's going to start talking about that.
So the frame of reference that we used for this group was the PEOP, Person, Environment, Occupation, Performance frame of reference. And the reason why we chose this is because it includes all of the elements that we were looking for during this activity, like who the person was, the environment that they would be in while performing these occupations, and how they're performing them, which are all important for money management skills. So one big thing is like how the environment is affecting the occupation, and then how it's interfering with the performance, and specifically like grocery shopping in the grocery store. And yeah, that's pretty much it.
So the purpose and goals of our group and the people we are trying to address would be those with cognitive delay or Down syndrome or autism. Additionally, there would be young adults who are trying to transition into a more independent role. And so the purpose was to teach them about budgeting, money management, and identifying item necessity. And they lack generally a knowledge of grocery costs.
So in that, we also had just some bulleted points I had listed down, some specific things, and Sarah's already mentioned some, but just the purpose is to manage money. It was one of our goals, to assess grocery items, be able to think about how much something costs versus another item. To choose appropriate items was a big thing, and to just identify coin values. We had some fake pieces of money that they could sort of identify with, and that was one of the suggestions when we were going through, is that we have money that actually looks like real money, so that the participants would be familiar with it and be able to learn as we go through that. So for the leadership style, we basically had a mixture, and it was a combination of directive and facilitative. We felt like it was directive because we were choosing the activities for them to do, and we had certain things that we wanted them to do, but within the activities they also had some choice, and so that we could sort of just guide them through that in a way, but they had choice as they were going through the activities. And we're going to start going through just some of the tasks that we had for them to do now. We had 4 specific tasks that we had them to do. The first one was called the needs versus wants, which is one that Sarah had sort of led up, so she's going to talk a bit more about that one.
So the needs versus wants activity was done because obviously this group definitely has some issues sometimes determining which items are needed and which of those aren't necessarily a necessity for them. So just identifying that with a budget, like which items can they buy and which items are more wanted items. So what we did was just had different cards laid out for them, 6 cards, and 3 were wants items, 3 were needs, and then they would go through and determine which of those items were needs and which were wants, and add up those totals and then check back with us to ensure that they had separated those correctly.
The second one was called Dollar Up at the Store, which was an estimating sort of task.
So, is that my task? Okay. So, Dollar Up at the Store was an activity sheet that we found, and basically it had items at the top, and then it would list underneath each item how much it costs. And the goal of this activity was for the participants to be able to add up items that they might put in their cart to determine how much they would need money-wise total once they got to the register. And So say they added up 2 items and they equaled $2.25. They would have to dollar up and determine how much money they would give the cashier. So they would give the cashier $3. And to make this more challenging, we could ask them how much change would they receive. So that's a way to upgrade this activity. So it was just important to make sure they knew how much money they would need when adding and subtracting items at the grocery store.
And then we actually did a grocery shopping simulation, which was really, I guess, one of the most important parts of the project, because it helped them to be in a context that was very similar to what they would be going into out in the, I guess, in the real world, in a sense. So that was a very important activity that we had for them to do.
So each the participants were grouped in groups of 2, and they were given a grocery list with items that we considered both wants and needs. And we added up all of the items that we considered were needed items and had a total cost. And we gave these participants a certain amount of money, and they were told that they had this much to spend at the grocery store. But the total on the list exceeded that amount, so they had to determine which items were wanted and which items were needed. And so that was a really good activity for them to not only reincorporate that wants and needs activity, but also to add up how much their items were going to be and to just simulate the grocery shopping experience.
And so the 4th activity that we did was called, I called it a price estimation game. And it's just something that we sort of came up with, just a little game for them to play in a way. We had pictures of just various items in a grocery store for them to see, and we had pictures, say, of different kinds of ketchup, different brands. So you have the store brand, you'd have the Hunt's brand, and Heinz brand. So different kinds of the same item. And the main point of this one was for them to be able to start price comparison between different items and be able to realize that there is a big variation even within the same item of cost. So that was one of the main things for them to learn in this, and also that there are generic brands and there are name brand things, and those have a different cost. And as well, we wanted them to get a sense of what different items, the cost range of different items that they have. Wanted them just to get a sense of what that would be when they go to the store. So those are just some of the things that we had them to do. Those are all the activities we had them to do. And I think now we'll probably just talk about just some different things that we learned about throughout the process.
So one of the main things I learned between the first group that we conducted and the second group was just how different groups can be. The first group took a lot more time doing the wants and needs activity than the second group did. And I think this would be the same in a real life setting, just depending on cognitive abilities and understanding of the activity and just the people that you have in the group. It can change a lot. And just to make sure that you're flexible so the time was different between the 2 groups, so we had to figure out how to fill that extra time that we had, and just to be flexible and know how to adapt to each group, because it's going to be a little different every time.
What I really learned was the importance of being organized. So for some of our adding games, the first time around we didn't necessarily have sheets for one of the activities that told us what the items added up to, and I feel like that was helpful to have, just going back to the second group so that we could go back and check their answers without having to add it up really quickly ourselves. And it also helped just with the flow so that things went more smoothly.
I think for me, there's I know one of the suggestions we had and helped me think a little bit more was that we should, when we were going through the end of the process, to give more time for the participants to think about what happened, to I guess sort of incorporate that into their thinking of what they actually learned, instead of sort of just giving them the answers back, because at the beginning we sort of said what we were going to do, and then at the end we basically did the same thing. So that was something I learned, is to try to give more time for them to think about answers to the questions we were asking at the end, and also to come up, like, questions are a very important thing So actually formulating good questions is an important part of the end process, I feel. And that's just something I learned throughout the process. And I don't know, is there anything else y'all want to say?
Yeah, that.
So that was our project, so thank you very much, and cool.